Thank you, America, for showing us the support and the dedication that should have been offered by Hillary and her State Department. To those who actually saved their asses, Benghazi's been a four-letter word for the left, but it's not about politics. Benghazi was about opportunities. Opportunities taken when we defied the stand-down orders, and opportunities squandered when Hillary failed to protect her people on the ground. Had she done her job that night, we wouldn't have had to compromise the annex. Ty, Glenn, Sean, and Ambassador Stevens would be alive today. Now we as Americans, we have an opportunity, and that opportunity is to elect someone who will make this country safe again. And I believe that person is Donald Trump.
My name is Patricia Smith. My son, Sean, was one of 4 brave Americans killed during the 2012 terrorist attack at Benghazi. He was proud to serve his country with the United States Foreign Service. The last time I talked to Sean, the night before the terrorist attack, he told me, "Mom, I am going to die." All security had been pulled from the embassy, he explained, and when he asked why, he never received a response. Nobody listened, nobody seemed to care. The very next day, he was murdered by radical Islamic terrorists. We lost 4 brave Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice for the country they chose to serve, and the American people lost the truth. For all of this loss, for all of this grief, for all of the cynicism, the tragedy in Benghazi has wrought upon America, I blame Hillary Clinton. I blame Hillary Clinton personally for the death of my son. That's personally. In an email to her daughter shortly after the attack, Hillary Clinton blamed it on terrorism. But when I saw Hillary Clinton, she sure is. She sure is. She lied to me and then called me a liar. When I saw Hillary Clinton at Sean's coffin ceremony just days later, she looked me squarely in the eye and told me a video was responsible. Since then, I have repeatedly asked Hillary Clinton to explain to me the real reason why my son is dead. I'm still waiting. Donald Trump is everything Hillary Clinton is not. He is blunt, direct, and strong. He speaks his mind and his heart. And when it comes to the threat posed by radical Islamic terrorism, he will not hesitate to kill the terrorists who threaten American lives. This entire campaign comes down to a single question. If Hillary Clinton can't give us the truth, why should we give her the presidency?
Libya was a different kind of calculation, and we didn't lose a single person. We didn't lose a single person. We didn't lose a single person. Single person. Single person. Single person.
We honor the memories of Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Darty, and Tyrone Woods. Their families have dealt with the reality of their deaths because of their service to America. And this is the simple story of those men's reality on the ground in Benghazi.
Our intelligence agencies knew that some of the rebels we supported were terrorists. Some were members of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. All of them were al-Qaeda groups on the State Department terrorist list. One of the terrorist commanders was even a former inmate at Guantanamo Bay.
The day before the Benghazi terrorist attacks, President Obama conferred with his cabinet to see what might be needed for the anniversary of 9/11. Hillary Clinton and Leon Panetta were present. Not a single change was made that might have helped those in the high-risk area of Benghazi.
At 7 p.m. in Washington, Panetta ordered the appropriate staff in the DoD to initiate movement, some 3+ hours after the message came in that there were Americans under fire.
At a 7:30 meeting, Hillary Clinton's State Department requested that the Marines go in civilian clothes, no military uniforms, and no weapons, in a war zone where Americans were under fire, because they didn't want to look like an invasion, because we didn't want to offend anybody. Really?
And even before the final American deaths occurred, Secretary Clinton sent out a statement blaming it on a spontaneous protest about a video, while privately telling others it was a terrorist attack. Most folks don't take mortars to a protest.
In the end, not one U.S. military aircraft, not one soldier outside of Libya was sent to Benghazi, where a battle dragged on for hours. Washington never intended to send anybody to Benghazi.
Americans don't leave a man behind. It's not who we are. It's not what we do. Yet we don't want our teammates coming home in flag-draped coffins because of failed leadership, false realities, and Washington bureaucrats who don't have their policies or priorities straight. We want them coming home with honor to their families and a grateful nation that can say, thank you for your service.
In March, Hillary Clinton called Patricia Smith a liar for claiming Clinton said a video caused Benghazi.
You know, look, I feel a great deal of sympathy for the families of the 4 brave Americans that we lost at Benghazi. And I certainly can't even imagine the grief that she has for losing her son. But she's wrong. She's absolutely wrong.
On Sunday, Mrs. Clinton again accused Mrs. Smith of lying.
As other members of families who lost loved ones have said, that's not what they heard. I don't hold any ill feeling for someone who, in that moment, may not fully recall everything that was or wasn't said.
And it's not just Patricia Smith. Tyrone Woods' father also said Hillary lied.
I gave Hillary a hug and shook her hand, and she said, "We are going to have the filmmaker arrested who was responsible for the death of my son." She made this statement not only to me, but to other family members.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
What, sir, would you like Hillary Clinton to say?
Well, I would like really for her to come clean and to tell the truth. I would like to know personally why there was no rescue attempt made. If there had been a rescue attempt, my son would still be alive.
So, Hillary, who is it that's lying?
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
1 hour before the attack in Benghazi, Chris Stevens walks the diplomat to the front gate. The ambassador didn't report a demonstration. He didn't report it because it never happened. An eyewitness in the command center that night on the ground said no protest, no demonstration. 2 intelligence reports that day. No protest, no demonstration. At 4:06, an ops alert goes out across the State Department. It says this: mission under attack, armed men, shots fired, explosions heard. No mention of a video, no mention of a protest, no mention of a demonstration. But the best evidence is Greg Hicks, the #2 guy in Libya, the guy who worked side by side with Ambassador Stevens. He was asked if there had been a protest, would the ambassador have reported it? Mr. Hicks' response, absolutely. For there to have been a demonstration on Chris Stevens' front door and him not to have reported it is unbelievable, Mr. Hicks said. He said, secondly, if it had been reported, he would have been out the back door within minutes, and there was a back gate. Everything points to a terrorist attack. We just heard from Mr. Pompeo about the long history of terrorist incidents, terrorist violence in the country. And yet 5 days later, Susan Rice goes on 5 TV shows, and she says this: Benghazi was a spontaneous reaction as a consequence of a video. A statement we all know is false. But don't take my word for it. Here's what others have said. Rice was off the reservation on 5 networks, White House worried about the politics. Republicans didn't make those statements. They were made by the people who work for you in the Near Eastern Affairs Bureau, the actual experts on Libya in the State Department. So, if there's no evidence for a video-inspired protest, then where'd the false narrative start? It started with you, Madam Secretary. At 10:08, on the night of the attack, you released this statement. Some have sought to justify the vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material posted on the internet. At 10:08, with no evidence, at 10:08, before the attack is over, at 10:08, when Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty are still on the roof of the annex fighting for their lives, the official statement of the State Department blames a video. Why?
During the day on September 11th, as you did mention, Congressman, there was a very large protest against our embassy in Cairo. Protesters breached the walls. They tore down the American flag. And it was of grave concern to us because the inflammatory video had been shown on Egyptian television, which has a broader reach than just inside Egypt. And if you look at what I said, I referred to the video that night in a very specific way. I said, some have sought to justify the attack because of the video. I used those words deliberately, not to ascribe a motive to every attacker, but as a warning to those across the region that there was no justification for further attacks. And in fact, during the course of that week, we had many attacks that were all about the video. We had people breaching the walls of our embassies in Tunis and Khartoum. We had people, thankfully not Americans, dying at protests, but that's what was going on, Congressman.
Secretary Clinton, I appreciate most of those attacks were after the attack on the facility in Benghazi. You mentioned Cairo. It was interesting what else Ms. Newland said that day. She said, if pressed by the press, if there's a connection between Cairo and Benghazi, she said this: there's no connection between the two. So here's what troubles me. Your experts knew the truth. Your spokesperson knew the truth. Greg Hicks knew the truth. But what troubles me more is I think you knew the truth. I want to show you a few things here. You're looking at an email you sent to your family. Here's what you said. At 11 o'clock that night, approximately 1 hour after you told the American people it was a video, you say to your family, 2 officers were killed today in Benghazi by an al-Qaeda-like group. You tell the American people one thing, you tell your family an entirely different story. Also, on the night of the attack, you had a call with the president of Libya. Here's what you said to him. Ansar al-Sharia is claiming responsibility. It's interesting, Mr. Katala, one of the guys arrested and charged, actually belonged to that group. And finally, and most significantly, the next day, within 24 hours, you had a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister. You told him this: we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. Let me read that one more time. We know, not we think, not it might be, we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. State Department experts knew the truth. You knew the truth, but that's not what the American people got. And again, the American people want to know why. Why didn't you tell the American people exactly what you told the Egyptian Prime Minister? Here's what I think's going on. Let me show you one more slide. Again, this is from Victoria Nuland, your press person. She says to Jake Sullivan and Philippe Reines, subject line reads this: Romney's statement on Libya. Email says this is what Ben was talking about. I assume Ben is the now somewhat famous Ben Rhodes, author of the Talking Points memo. This email is at 10:35, 27 minutes after your 10:08 statement. 27 minutes after you've told everyone it's a video, while Americans are still fighting because the attack's still going on, your top people are talking politics. Seems to me that night you had three options, Secretary. You could tell the truth, like you did with your family, like you did with the Libyan president, like you did with the Egyptian prime minister. Tell them it was a terrorist attack. You could say, you know what, we're not quite sure. Don't really know for sure. I don't think the evidence is there. I think it's all in the first one, but you could have done that. But you picked a third option. You picked the video narrative. You picked the one with no evidence, and you did it because Libya was supposed to be, as Mr. Roskin pointed out, this great success story for the Obama White House and the Clinton State Department. And a key campaign theme that year was GM's alive, bin Laden's dead, Al-Qaeda's on the run. And now you have a terrorist attack. And it's a terrorist attack in Libya. And it's just 56 days before an election. You can live with a protest about a video. That won't hurt you. But a terrorist attack will. So you can't be square with the American people. You can tell your family it's a terrorist attack, but not the American people. You can tell the president of Libya it's a terrorist attack, but not the American people. And you can tell the Egyptian prime minister it's a terrorist attack, but you can't tell your own people the truth. Madam Secretary, Americans can live with the fact that good people sometimes give their lives for this country. They don't like it. They mourn for those families. They pray for those families, but they can live with it. But what they can't take, what they can't live with, is when their government's not square with them.
Because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?